What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham G. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network, as well as on the E! Network, as today we're talking Season 5, Episode 9 of Total Bellas, entitled Sweat It Out. So, upon looking it up earlier today, I thought the Season 5 finale would be next week with Episode 10, because typically, from what I've noticed anyway, I haven't gone back and checked, the seasons are around 10 episodes long. This season is extending beyond that, probably because there's so much stuff happening during the season, at the end of the season, with both Brie and Nikki getting pregnant, Artem proposing to Nikki. All of that will be covered on this season, albeit at the very end, it looks like. I figure next week would be the season finale, but there's still so much still to get to between Brie and Nikki both getting pregnant, Artem proposing to Nikki, which is supposedly going down on next week's episode. So next week will not be the season finale. There is at least 2 more episodes left. And that 11th episode might be the season finale. But as of right now, there are still 2 more episodes on tap between next week on the 4th and then an 11th episode of the season on the 11th, coincidentally enough, of June and 2 more weeks. So anyway, we start off this episode with, we see Nikki getting Brie singing lessons. It doesn't go anywhere beyond this. You would think, oh, this might be a theme for the episode. Brie works she works on her singing skills, and she's not terrible, but she's not as great as Nikki kind of makes her out to be either. It's so funny because Nikki wants her to sing some sort of song or like a line or whatever, and they're with not an acting coach, a singing coach. And she belts out this line, and she has a lot of power in her voice, but the actual singing isn't amazing, and maybe it was a camera cut, like it was the magic of editing or whatever, but like the guy is just sitting there speechless and not really knowing what to say, and it's one of those reactions where he's like, wow, that's really not that good, but I'm not going to sit here and say that because I want her to come back and continue to pay me for more singing lessons. So he says, oh yeah, she has a lot of potential, blah, blah, blah. She does sing, or tries to sing, one more time later on in the episode, but that's the last we hear of it. That's just a weird opening intro for the show. It's nothing that has to do with this episode whatsoever, so just a bit of a heads up there. Not like it really matters. But meanwhile, what is a bigger theme on this episode is what Brie and Brian will be doing on their trip to Sedona, which they talked about, maybe not on the last episode, but on the episode before that, where they agreed to kind of take a weekend out, go back to where they got married, actually, in Sedona, and kind of on, by themselves, on their own, no Birdie, no Nikki, Artem, whatever, just kind of going out on their own to go work on their relationship. But what they do is, Brie and Nikki have a meditation expert on their podcast, someone they're very familiar with. I guess it helped Brian with his depression, it helped Brie with her anxiety, it helps Nikki go to sleep at night, so they're very familiar with this guy named Adam, I think his name is. And that kind of sets the tone for the rest of this episode, because that meditation will be what Brie and Brian use to kind of heal the relationship. I don't want to say literally, but almost quite literally later on in their trip to Sedona. So anyway, Brie confides to Nikki about how she doesn't really know when Nikki asks her, and Kathy's there too. They talk about how, Brie, do you know if you'll be with Brian forever? Like, is he one of those people that you know is meant for you, you're meant to be together forever, blah, blah, blah. And again, it might have been an editing trick, but she doesn't give an answer. She doesn't say, yes, obviously we're meant to be, or like whatever. They play it off as she doesn't really know, which is what the purpose of this trip is, to her to kind of find out, what's the status of their relationship? Is this meant to last, beyond the next couple of years, months, weeks, whatever? Going forward, are they meant to be together for the rest of their respective lives? You know what I mean? And she even admits that she feels like they're living separate lives right now because they both want different things. And she even said to Brian in the car a couple of episodes ago, where Brian had mentioned that he wants a simpler life, and he brings it up later on in this episode too, where she said, oh, we evolve as humans, I want different things now, and whenever he comes home from being on the road, she has to leave to do other stuff. So it's almost like she's acting as a single parent, not, purposely, but that's just the way their lives are being lived right now by both Brie and Brian. So she wants to go on this trip to be honest, to be open, to really kind of crack down and figure out what their future holds for them and Birdie and just the entire family on the whole. So meanwhile, Artem invites his parents to visit them in France. I forgot why Artem and Nikki are going to France. Maybe I missed that, but they're going to France. The parents are going to be there too. I figured it would be an Artem-Nikki trip, but apparently the whole family's going. And it's a big deal because A, Nikki's never met the parents before, and B, because Artem's parents, I guess, hadn't had a visa prior to this point. They never traveled outside of the country. So this is their first time, I think, leaving where they live. I believe in Russia, right, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a pretty big deal. This is the first time Nikki's meeting them. She's excited, but obviously nervous as well, which is a pretty common feeling among anyone meeting their boyfriend or girlfriends or fiancés' parents for the first time. But anyway, so it's a pretty big deal, and Brie hears this, and she's like, that's very strange, because of all the times for the parents to come visit, why would it be now in France? That seems very odd to me. So on the other end of this table, this news breaks when Brie and Nikki are at like this dinner with the entire family. Like everyone's there. Johnny Ace is there. Kathy, Brie. Don't know about Brian. Literally everyone is there. So Brie and Nikki and Artem are on one side of the table, and then Brie and Kathy and Johnny are all on the other side of the table. So while Artem is talking to Nikki, Brie's talking to Kathy and Johnny about how this seems a little weird to me. So I think that he might be proposing. That's probably what's going on here. And then that's when she breaks the news to Kathy about how she went ring shopping. Brie went ring shopping with Artem, to kind of get a feel for what he wants and what Nikki would want, because Brie would obviously know Nikki better than anyone. And then she also tells Kathy that, he felt he couldn't afford it. He was stressed out, didn't really feel like it was on the table at that point. So they kind of, and they put it off to the side. It felt like at that point. He didn't say he was committing to getting a ring. He just wasn't ready for it. And Kathy realizes not that he doesn't have the money, but he's not with Dancing with the Stars right now. It just seems like a lot of stress for one person, blah, blah, blah. But another thing that Brie brings up is that she doesn't really know if Nikki's going to say yes. And again, this is all going on at the same dinner table, which is amazing. I'm sure Nikki hears it, but for the show, she's ignoring it. But it just seems weird. They're not bashing, but criticizing Nikki and Artem on the other side of the table that they themselves are sitting at. You know what I mean? It just seems weird. But I'm sure that's just a common thing, of course. But anyway, so she's like, oh yeah, I feel like he might propose, but I feel like Nikki might say no. At least right now. I don't think she's ready for that right now. I feel like if he was to propose at this very moment, she would freak out. So anyway, fast forward to later on in the episode, Artem says he might be a part of a new show called Flirty Dancing or something like that. Maybe it's a play on Dirty Dancing, obviously the iconic movie. He might be a part of that. And then Brie goes to Kathy, Mama Bella, and asks her, do you think we should go to France with Nikki and Artem? Which doesn't really seem like their call to make. I'm not even sure if Nikki would want them. That's never brought up on this episode to Nikki about whether they should go with her or not, because she has no idea what's going on, it seems. But Brie and Kathy are like, maybe we should go, because if the parents are going, it's not a matter of Nikki saying no and then Artem's there awkwardly with his parents. It's more a matter of, would Nikki feel pressure to say yes, because the parents are there? Whereas if we're there, Brie and Kathy that is, would she be more compelled to be honest than say no if she actually, as opposed to feeling pressure to say yes? Does that make sense? You know what I mean? So they're like, it might be a good idea, but at the same time, I really, she also doesn't think that Artem at the same time would ask Kathy to marry Nikki. So another thing they bring up here is that about how, traditionally the guy asks the dad of the bride-to-be about marrying that guy's daughter. Okay, obviously we all know this. This is pretty common stuff. The dad's not really in the picture. She still thinks that, Artem should ask the dad to marry Nikki, and if it would be okay with him, to get his blessing, obviously. And that's all well and good, but obviously Kathy and the dad, of course, are not on speaking terms at all. And Kathy is a lot closer to Nikki, because she kind of raised Nikki and Brie on her own there for a while after the dad walked out and they, got divorced, whatever. She thinks, both Brie and specifically Kathy think that it would only be appropriate if Artem asked Kathy as well, not just the dad. Because I guess Brian asked the dad if he could marry Brie, but he never asked Kathy, which she's offended by all these years later, which is kind of funny. I guess it didn't really bother her that he never asked her, but it does bother her now knowing that he asked the dad as opposed to Kathy. So they're hoping that he'll do that. Anyway, so going back to the Sedona trip with Brian and Brie, Brian's hope for this trip is to reconnect with, Brie, get back on good terms, kind of get a feel for where they are right now, how they both feel internally, stuff like that. And they initially feel good upon going back to Sedona, which is, again, like I said earlier, where they got married. And Brie even says, I don't want this marriage to end for a lack of trying. Just because we didn't try, I don't want this marriage to end. We're both going to really give it our best. So Nikki, while she's with Artem, admits to Artem that she wants to make a good first impression on Artem's family, on his family, on his parents, by learning Russian, which is obviously a lot easier said than done. They go to some bake shop or something like that. He's trying to teach her some words. She tries. I appreciate the effort, so does he, but she does absolutely horribly. And the woman that works there, her reactions are priceless because she realizes that this chick cannot speak Russian to save her life. It's amazing. And Artem wants to teach her some words, and he thinks that her Russian is endearing, he says, but completely terrible at the same time. It makes no sense. But again, at least she's willing to try. And then Nikki's like, yeah, I don't think learning Russian is going to be the way to impress them. I might have to try something else. So back to Brie and Brian. They go to a Native American healer, which I guess Brian is very high on. He had done it before. I'm not sure if it's the same guy, but he had done something similar to help with his depression, which he has been... It's very well documented. He's been dealing with depression for a long time now. I'm not sure if it dates back to when he first retired years ago, or if it dates back earlier than that. It probably does. I'm sure it's a lifelong thing he's constantly dealt with, but specifically in recent years, retiring from wrestling, having to cope with that, getting back into wrestling, coping with that because he's always on the road and he's away from Brie and Birdie, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so he thinks that because this Native American healer, maybe not the exact same guy, but they've helped him heal depression before, so he's hoping that it can help heal his relationship. And after the guy opens it's like a little hut type thing, after they open the doorway or the window, what's closing the exit way, they open it up after they do the whole process, he just starts bawling his eyes out. He's all upset, he starts crying, and he even says he felt like his mind just let go, and he can't control it, but internally he feels like an observer. He feels like he is not surprised by what he's seeing, and he finally feels like he's at peace for the first time in a long time. And he feels like a blank slate because he just let it all go, and sometimes you just have to do that. And he feels like a blank slate in a satisfied way, really, relieving the weight from his shoulders and really feeling like he's letting all of that darkness, as Brie calls it, and the Native American healer as well, just let it out. Brie doesn't really get emotional. She's kind of scared watching Brian's reaction, which I don't blame her. It's a little freaky watching this type of stuff, and it absolutely is real. They can't fake this stuff. But it seems like it genuinely helps Brian and puts him in a better place than he was previously. And he even admits, I've been dealing with depression for a long time, and Brie wants to help him with that. But he also admits he wants a simpler life. He reiterates that again. And Brie even says, I feel like I haven't been listening to him because it's something that's been bothering him for a long time. And she even says, if it's something that's bothering you, if you have something on your mind, please bring it up to me. And he says, well, I feel like you have enough on your plate. And she says, listen, this is the first thing on my plate. I really want to help you with this. Don't, bottle it in as you have done, which is pretty evident from the Native American healing session because it all just came out in that one moment, But they do say coming out of the trip that they feel closer together and that they want to make a real effort to put their marriage first. So while they're away, Nikki and Artem are watching Birdie, and Nikki sees this as a great opportunity, as kind of like a litmus test type thing, where she wants to see how Artem would do as a dad and how good he would be with kids and stuff like that. And she thinks that overall he does very, very well. So back to Brian and Brie. Brian, they go to see a therapist or something, and Brian says, and which I think was on the show at this point, years ago. I completely forgot about this, but 3 years ago, back in 2016, because this was happening in late 2019, this episode was filmed. 3 years ago, in late 2016, right after he retired from wrestling, he just left. They show clips of Brie talking about it with, Nikki and the family and whatever. But they mention how Brian just up and left. He just couldn't take it anymore. It had nothing to do with Brie. It was all his own issues. He couldn't stand to see Brie, the effect that the depression was taking on her and how exhausted she was from having to deal with it. He couldn't take it anymore, so he just up and left. For 3 months back to Washington State, which is kind of crazy. And he says here that he was wrong for doing that, and he apologizes, and she accepts his apology. But then they get to the positive stuff, talking about what they adore about each other. And the therapist even says, you guys just need quality time, even away from your own daughter. You need that time to really rebuild that relationship and find what worked for you initially and hone in on that. And Brian says he wants to keep trying. Bree says that she really wants to give their relationship the tender, loving care it needs. And they really feel like that Sedona trip did wonders. So back to Artem and Brie to close out the episode. Artem invites Brie out to like drinks or whatever. He's drinking it first thing in the morning, which has become a regular occurrence apparently for Artem. And not to say he's an alcoholic, but he's just been that stressed out lately. So what he does, he reveals to Brie, because Brie has no idea what's going on until she gets there. He tells her, I bought an engagement ring. And apparently it's a really, really nice ring. It's never said here how much it is, but, you know, on the episode where they went ring shopping for Nikki, Brie and Artem, that is, there were rings that Nikki said, that Brie said that Nikki would like that were like over $1 million. It was completely ridiculous. So he must have bought it, not bought like the $1 million one, but it was definitely an expensive one. Brie isn't like, oh, you bought the cheapskate one, like you bought a pretty nice one. So I would love to know how much money that thing cost him and how much stress he's feeling since putting down the down payment and getting that ring, you know? Anyway, though, so he's like, she flat out asks him, are you going to propose to Nikki when you're in France? And he doesn't outright say yes, but he obviously hints at it, and he goes, well, it would be a pretty crazy coincidence since my parents are there, blah, blah, blah. Brie says, listen, if you are going to do it, I have to ask you that you must ask Kathy for permission. I feel like my mom, and she doesn't say that, you know, I talked to her, this is what she would want, blah, blah, blah. She doesn't say that she'd been speculating about it leading up to this point. She kind of keeps it cool. But she does say, you know, definitely ask my dad. That'd be nice. But traditions be damned, so to speak. You have to ask my mom as well. I feel like she would be really offended if you didn't. So the whole reason why he brought this meeting up in the first place was because he actually needs Brie to go pick up the ring. They're leaving for France the next day, tomorrow. Not when I'm recording this, but like when this takes place. And she's like, well, how can you go get the ring in Phoenix? Because he doesn't have it, he says. How can you go get the ring if we're leaving, or you're leaving? I don't know if she ever said to him that they're going with them, or whatever the hell happened with that. They never acknowledged whether that was the case or not, whether it was confirmed that Brie and Kathy were, you know, going to France with them along with the family. She goes, you're leaving tomorrow, so how does that work? And he goes, well, that's where I need you to come in. And I'm really stressed out. I need your help to go pick up the ring. And she's like, oh, man, like I'm not going to do it, but it's just a lot to ask, and it's just really, really crazy. And Brie even says to close out the episode, and her mind has not changed, I don't know if they're ready for this. And I guess we'll soon find out on the next episode when he supposedly proposes to Nikki. So we'll find that out on the next episode of Total Bellas, Season 5, Episode 10. This was Season 5, Episode 9, Sweat It Out. Good episode overall. We are inching towards the season finale with the proposal and the pregnancies, which they also teased at the end of this episode. I'm sure that's going to be like the cliffhanger for the end of next week's episode. And then episode 11 will be all about, oh, they're pregnant, blah, blah, blah. And we might get more episodes beyond that. I have no idea how many episodes are in this season, in season 5 in this season. But I guess we'll find out. There's at least 2 more. I know that. I would have to assume that episode 11 will be the end of it after they'll probably chop it off after the pregnancy stuff and then do like an epilogue maybe type episode, maybe. But I feel like that might be it. So time will tell, though. Episode 10 coming up next week and episode 11 soon after that. So check out my reviews right here on the channel every Friday on WWE Network and Chill. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. If you want more Total Bellas reviews, if you're into that type of thing, you probably aren't. But if you are, if you're listening to this, you probably are. You can click the description box down below and for the full playlist of all my Total Bellas reviews dating back to Season 2. I've already seen Season 1, but I never reviewed it at the time, so I might go back at some point and review that. But all my Season 2, 3, 4, and now 5 reviews are up here on WWE Network and Chill in one place in a playlist, so check that out. But tomorrow here on the channel for Saturday, hoping to do a SmackDown review. I did not do one for last week. I was busy, and we did the AEW Double or Nothing 2019 live stream instead, the watch-along. So we should be back to doing a SmackDown audio review for tomorrow, so check that out. And Sunday, I might be doing on the next Network and Chill a new episode on the Sting the Lost Tape, which is going up on the WWE Network first thing Sunday. So I don't know if that's something worth reviewing or what's going on with that. I will check it out to see what it's all about. But if I do review it, it should be up on Sunday. And of course, subscribe for more Wrestle Rant Radio excerpt, hashtag, the Wrestle Rant Radio excerpts, that is, plural, hashtag SGSM, MCU Rewatch Review Series podcasts, and so much more. So have a great one, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.